Good afternoon and welcome into the Morning Burrito Podcast. I am Michael.
I'm Eric.
And we are in a new location.
New location, only because our other location is tore apart.
We have a big pew that doesn't fit in the room quite well.
We thought we would move it because it would fit, but somebody didn't measure to make sure.
That would be both of us.
That would be both of us.
I trusted my boss.
Looks can be deceiving because it looked like it should fit.
It looked like it should fit.
Who would have thought?
It was like 3 feet too long.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just needs a chainsaw. It's all it needs.
Yeah, so next time we're in the studio, it probably won't look different to you, but we will definitely be sitting in a different place in our studio. We will have to move things around a little bit to make it work.
So for those that are listening, not watching, we're sitting here with handheld mics and one hand, and then I got the coffee in the other. So I'm happy.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm thrilled.
And flies probably laid eggs in there.
I know,
at this
probably.
point. It is the time of year for those of you who are north, central, eastern Oregon folk here in the desert land, where melons start to rot in the fields and flies come out like crazy.
Horrible. It's crazy.
So we're going to talk about two things today. We're going to recap our Fall Fest that happened a couple days ago.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, it was a great event, as it always has been. So we'll talk about that, and then we're going to ask a question and try and answer it today. What is the question we're going to be asking?
Well, we're going to talk about those of you. Well, one would say church hoppers. Other would say, yeah, we're still seeking for a church. So we're going to talk about what makes a healthy church.
What makes a healthy church? Well, stick with us as we have this conversation today on the Morning Burrito Podcast. All right, we are back. So we are going to start our conversation by talking about Fall Fest. It happened a couple days ago on
We're both
Monday.
wearing green.
We are wearing green.
Yeah.
I have a cool T-shirt underneath, by the way.
Oh, you love your wife?
I love my wife.
Oh, okay. So
She has one that matches that says "I love my husband."
Oh, that's
so
nice.
cute.
That's nice. My T-shirt says "Honey Bucket" on it.
I don't want to know.
It's a great story. Anyway, that's another day.
Yeah, that's a story for another day.
My wife does not like this shirt.
So Sharon
Sorry,
cannot
honey.
listen that day. All right. So let's recap Fall Fest. So there's a lot, Eric, that goes into our Fall Fest preparation. This year was a lot different than the previous 3 years that I've been here because you weren't really involved in a lot of the preparation.
No, man, I kind of bailed on everybody this year with sabbaticals. So our office manager, Gabriel, she said, hey, I will volunteer to run it this year. And I was like, you go right ahead. And she did just phenomenal. Not because she's my daughter or office manager, just that she had a great heart and pulled it off. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I know
it was a little strange not being part of it.
It was strange not having you a part of it. But you're right. Gabriel did a great job. It was very well run. This year was a little odd, too, because in our town, there were no other churches that we're aware of doing anything on Halloween this year.
Yeah, it's kind of strange.
Now, for the last 2 years, Halloween has been on Saturday and then Sunday, respectively, and so it makes things a whole lot easier for the church world to have Halloween on those days, because the weekend makes things just easier.
Yeah, and do it in daylight. You can do that. So.
Which allows a lot of our older folks to be a part of it because they don't have to drive in the dark and those sorts of things. But nevertheless, we didn't know what to expect number-wise for people coming on our campus this year because of just kind of the weirdness of that. There were really only a couple other things happening in our town yesterday. And we had over 700 people on campus in the rain yesterday.
Yeah, that was crazy. It was one of those deals where you sit there and you look at people and they come through the line and, man, they're hardcore people. I mean, they were not backing down. They wanted their chocolate. In fact, some of not just kids, but their parents would come up to us and trick or treat, give them their candy, and they were gone. They were as fast as they could just because of the rain, and I just laughed at them because there's no time for chit chat. It was like candy, go.
So we have, for our Fall Fest, we do several different parts to our Fall Fest. There's several different activities or things that kids and families can participate in. You want to lay that out for our audience? What do we do?
Yeah, so we just have everything on campus. So we have trunks, and our people come. They decorate their trunks. We pass out candy. It's
Typical trunk or treat.
like a big line there. And then indoor, you and the students, you guys do a great job at an indoor like games for kids and still candy. Hand out cotton candy. And then we have 2 different hay rides. Got the slow hay ride with the big 20-foot trailer with the tractor, and then we got the ATV hay ride on the short trailer that just kind of will jar you apart.
You're lucky you don't fall off
Yeah.
the trailer, to be
Yeah.
quite honest.
And then you know the big addition was this year though.
What
It
was
was
that?
great. Honey buckets, porta potties.
Oh, yeah.
We had 2 of them this year.
So that's what a honey bucket is.
Yeah, that's what a honey bucket is. That's why my wife does not like the T-shirt I'm wearing. So
See, you weren't going to explain it. Now we know.
No, but it's there. So, but yeah, I was surprised at how frequently they were frequented.
Yeah, we had. It's amazing. You know, we haven't done this yet before. This is the first year. I don't know how it took us this long to figure out that we needed to have porta potties on site, but we finally did it this year. After last year, we had some building peeing happening. So
Yeah, well, outside.
outside.
I mean, all that. I don't know if anybody did it inside, but
We did have to allow the bathrooms to be used last year indoors, and it was just very difficult, because you let
It's
some
funny.
people do it, and then you don't want to let others, and that just gets all convoluted. So yeah, the porta potties, having one at either end of our parking lot,
Huge.
was really big. Also having lights that were donated for the event was great.
Yep.
Great parking area. It was a phenomenal event, even with the rain. Although it was funny, I was kind of perched right at our front door, and to be able to look out, and as soon as the rain started, and it was like, it wasn't just the sprinkly stuff, it was raining. You saw the numbers go whoop.
Yeah, that last
Right
40,
off the cliff.
Yeah, that last 40 minutes, it was just us out there sucking on our candy. So it was definitely strange. We usually don't have a lull in the night. I mean, usually it's just go for 2 hours, and this year that last 15 minutes was hard. But man, HermNaz just stuck through with me.
Yep.
We didn't quit early. We were there till the end. So we were alone there those last 10 minutes, but we did it.
So one of the things that I think it's important for not only our HermNaz folks, but just a reminder for our community why we do it the way we do it. Because there are many churches and organizations that did either Saturday or Sunday on the weekend, because it's logistically just an easier thing to do when it's not on a weekday. Why does HermNaz choose to do ours even when Halloween is a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Why do we choose to do our event the day of Halloween always?
So, I think it goes back to our vision and our mission as a church. And the vision and mission is we want to be authentic, which we're going to talk about a little bit today, I guess. But being authentic, you want to offer a true alternative to something. And a true alternative is not, let's celebrate a week ahead of time or a day ahead of time. It's an alternative is in place of. So in order for us to be light in the darkness, we have to be in the darkness in order to be the light, and that just doesn't happen unless you're part of the actual cultural event. So we've taken the approach that's why we don't switch. We will do it on Halloween night, allowing the culture to be removed from culture and be able to come on our campus. And I mean, so that's in a nutshell. That's why.
And so, what are some of the benefits that you've seen doing this model now? We've done Fall Fest
This
for
is
what,
8
years.
Mm-hmm.
So versus the other model of we'll just always do it when it's convenient and easy for the church to do it. What's the advantage that you see with our community now 8 years?
So
into it?
relationship is huge. We have, just every year, including last night, even in the raindrops, people coming through. Hey, this is the only place we come. This is it. This is our family. We've come here, so many years. So the relationship we have with the community is huge. Do we see huge growths in numbers of our church? No, but that's not the goal. Now it has been an entryway to the church. I mean, we have people that have come to HermNaz because of the event, or were first introduced to HermNaz because of that event. But yeah, relationship, I think, was probably the number one off the chart thing. Is we have people that know that we're coming here because the church has done a quality deal on Halloween for them. The one story I heard last night was parents were wanting their kids to go door to door trick or treating, and the kids said, "No, we have to go to that church so we can get the hayride first." And I was like, "Okay," and so they're here, and then they circled through actually twice, and I recognized them the second time, and they're like, "Yeah, we're just gonna stay here for the whole night, not go anywhere else." I mean, so we have them for 2 hours on the campus or however long they stay, right? But so anyway, relationship's huge.
That's cool. And this year the student ministry, we did something even beyond what we've done the last couple of years. This year we had a reading nook with
that looked good.
The Cat in the Hat.
Yeah.
And the Cat in the Hat was here reading Dr. Seuss books for the whole 2 hours, and it was just really neat to see kids from our community, not from our church necessarily, just come and sit for 15 minutes, or I saw one kid that was in there for like 45 minutes just listening to stories.
Wow, cool.
which is really neat. I think that's something that you can get at the library, I suppose, but that's something cool that our church was able to provide this year. And then as well, a family friendly, not scary carnival in the black lights game atmosphere that is really fun for kids. And our organizer Kelly Hoskins did a fantastic job.
Awesome job.
Leading that event, part of the event, and her team. I'm just proud of my students, proud of my adult leaders. It was just a fantastic piece of the event, and we've talked about it. It is one of the things that we do that sets us apart from all the other trunk or treats or fall fests and things, is that we have this game atmosphere that is different than other churches and stuff. So we take pride in that. We like that we can be something different and provide a cool atmosphere that nobody else does. So
and part of the relationship too with the church, it was so cool last night is we had a couple people bring trunks, decorate them. One in particular, decorate them, and our senior adults who can't decorate a trunk or just can't.
Right.
They come and they sit and they just pass out the candy. And one of our senior adults, Miss Neva, she sat there. She had her blanket on, and then she had her coat over her blanket, and then she had her scarf, and then she had her hood up. She had her gloves on, and she just sat there in her little chair, and she's just handing out the church information and then the candy, and it was.
Yeah, and actually it was funny. So we have these cards, and we give them out every year that tell about our student ministry, our kids ministry, and our church as a whole. What do we do? And I saw multiple kids while they were in the black lights because the cards actually glowed in the dark.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was. I'd have to ask Gabriel. I don't know if that was actually intentional or not, but in her preparing them. But I saw multiple kids when I would walk into the glow in the dark area. The kids just reading the cards, which is exactly what we want, is for that information to be ingrained in them, so that if they are looking for a church, or if they want to try church maybe for the first time, they have a place to go that they know is a safe place and a place that loves them and cares about them, and that's cool.
And actually, last night, one of the coolest things that happened was one of our trunks had a set up to be like a prayer deal.
Yeah,
and she had a little bucket there with a sign on it that said prayer request. Or how can I pray for you, kind of thing. And she actually had 6 kids put something in there on how, whatever they were. So I'm waiting to hear that list of how we're praying for them. So
that's neat.
And they were community people. They weren't church people. They were like community kids that we don't know. So
that's awesome.
That was pretty cool.
Well,
anyway, great event. Thank you to the HermNaz staff and volunteers that pulled that off. And, we're in recovery all week long, still picking up. It's raining out, so we still can't pick up everything.
There's straw everywhere in this church, it seems like.
Everywhere.
I vacuumed our ministry center today for an hour.
Yeah, my truck is trashed, too. So
we love this time of year, though. It's been great.
Awesome.
So, let's move on to our question. What makes a healthy church is what we're going to discuss. And I think it's
actually what makes a great church.
What makes a great
church?
So I think the place to start, the question to start before we can actually answer that question, is what do we expect of churches? And I think that's there's even a more specific way of, do we expect something different from, say, the small church on the corner versus the big mega church that's down the street that has 1,000 plus people going to it. So what are some expectations that people have when they walk into churches?
So I think this is where if you are watching, type it in there. What do you expect in church? What to you makes a great church? Not really what you expect, but what really makes a great church? Let us hear from you on that, because that'll help us, even as we move forward. But so I think just to keep it simple, just it doesn't matter the size of the church, but what just makes a great church? Some things that I came up with. People like to go where people are like-minded. They want to have things in common. That's a great church. There's also a detriment to that.
I was going to say, in this day and age, we've already talked about it, the growth of partisanship and the divide with politics and all kinds of things these days. People will literally leave churches, and they have in these last few years, because I don't agree on some finer point of something.
Right. So being like-minded is big, though. I mean, we like the like-mindedness, and that trickles down to our life groups. It's hard to get people into life groups because they want to be like-minded in things, but that's what makes a great church, is having a life group and having people that are like-minded.
To do a life group, I need to be with people my age, in my situation. Like, well, I'm not married and don't have any kids, but I'm 31 years old. I don't really want to be in a life group with 30-something-year-olds who have kids.
Right.
That's because they're at different places in their life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what I hear when people talk about what makes a great church is the location. It's just down the street. It's just down the block. I don't have to drive very far. There's not a whole lot of road time. So.
Would you agree, though, that is overcome if the church is great?
I think so.
Because, I know, like, for us, when I was growing up, the church that we went to, I guess growing up is the wrong word, when I was in high school, the church that we went to, it took us a good 20 to 30 minutes, somewhere in that ballpark. Driving in Chicago, it's lots of stoplights and stuff, so it depends. But we would drive a pretty good distance to the church. There were a lot of churches along the way that we didn't go to. We went to this church because it was a great church.
Right, and we have people here at HermNaz that'll drive 20 minutes. Some will drive an hour, to come. So.
We have people that have come from Boardman and other places to. When we had the Liberty Quartet, we had people driving from Portland to come see the Liberty Quartet from Walla Walla.
So location does have a role in it, because we have people from Hepner and Ione, and there's churches there that they could go to, but they come. Boardman, there's churches they could come. Tri-Cities, there's lots of churches, but yet they come. And I'm probably forgetting somebody. The goal is not to hit your town, okay? But you know who you are. So I think the other one is that I hear a lot is the quality of program that a church has makes it a great church.
And that's tough because not every church has the capacity to have this great program or that great program, whether you're talking about your kids ministry or your student ministry or, young families or the middle-aged folk or the senior adults. Like most churches, because most churches are not mega churches, most churches have the capacity to do maybe 1, 2, or 3 things well, like really well. Outside of that, it's going to be a lot more complicated for them to do many things because, frankly, they have less volunteers. You can only do as much as you can with your volunteer people.
Exactly. I think the other thing that I look at when I think of what I hear people say, what makes a great church, is their biblical teaching and theology. Does that match? Because a lot of churches, they might be a good biblical teacher, but the theology stinks. Or the theology is bad, and therefore the interpretation of the Bible isn't spot on, kind of thing. So,
but they have a charismatic leader who can teach it well, even if it's the wrong stuff.
Exactly. And then you go down the whole road of false teaching and all that. Anyway, so I think I hear that is like when people are looking for a great church and they stop here at HermNaz, it's like they want to know: are you a Bible teaching church? And what's your theology? Kind of thing. So. So I don't know
we're a Bible teaching church, right?
We try to be.
We believe in that book.
Okay, here, let me answer it. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we believe in that book.
We probably fail sometimes, but but we
So
try.
I don't know if this is on your list, but just question: do you think that people will go to a church that they would say a great church has the most dynamic and incredible, captivating, whatever word adjective you want to use, worship music and music ministry.
So I think there's a day in the church where that was be true, but I think people have come through that. I think I don't know if we're on the other side of it, but I think people would rather have authenticity in relationship.
So what does that look like when it comes? I mean, this is the worship pastor asking the not worship pastor this question, but
right.
What does that look like to somebody walking through the door? An authentic worship experience as opposed to, rock and roll, fog machine, haze machine, lights going everywhere.
Well, you kind of just answered the question. When I look at that, I look at the church. Now this is old school term here, right? But MTV, right? We had to be MTV ready. We had to have the quality, the lights, the program be spot on, be crisp, because that MTV is like what everybody looked at there for a long time. So I still think there's an element to that because we want to do our best, and we should put our pennies where we need to put it to do things. But I think we're past that, and I think people will look and go like, you know what? It doesn't really matter if we have electricity sometimes, even if the worship is authentic, and if the Bible is what's taught. And I mean that's not for everybody. Some still look at the gimmick of the lights and the fog machines and the hyped up music and the electric guitar and all of that and go like, yeah, that's what we want. Great. To them, that's a great church. To the senior adults and those who love hymns, the organ, that's all we sing. That's a great church. So we have to be blended in that somehow.
Yeah.
Which we fail at a lot. But.
Yeah, and I think I will say that for us at HermNaz, plugging our church, I mean, we believe in our church. That's why we're here. I think our team, by and large, does a really good job of focusing on one thing. And I repeat this. I mean, you've heard it almost every week that I've been here. I repeat to the team, we're up there for an audience of one, not an audience of 100 or 200 or whatever is in our sanctuary. Our audience is God and God alone as a worship team. Like when we go on stage, we are worshiping, like if we are authentically worshiping ourselves, that'll bleed into the rest of the people in the room. Like,
but man, that is so hard because a lot of people don't get that, because we get the comments afterwards like, it's too hot, it's too cold, it was too loud, the cymbals I couldn't hear a thing, I couldn't hear that singer, the keyboard was, I mean, we hear some of that. It's like, why'd you even get out of bed in the morning? You know?
Well, and you, I think a lot of times church people certainly can forget that number one thing can go wrong and it can really be a distraction for everybody and it's nobody's fault. I mean, just one thing can go wrong. I mean, we know with our live stream on Sunday mornings, things go wrong more frequently than we would like. But the one thing is I can speak for our team. I think on most Sundays, our people that are on the worship team, whether they're in the sound booth or whether they're on the stage, they are focused on worshiping God to the best of their ability and letting the chips fall where they may. And I think that's where the authenticity, at least from my perspective as a worship leader, comes through. I even have to check myself on it many times because it can be very easy to be performance-oriented when it comes to the music. And, like, we got to make sure we do it this way. And even these last few weeks, we've made a decision as a team to lessen the amount of songs that we do each week so that we can just let the Spirit move. And if we need to repeat a chorus, so be it. Like, we'll just follow the Spirit's leading on that and not be concerned about, well, we got to have 5 songs. They've got to sound like this. The order's got to be like that. And we're just trying to simplify.
So, but all this makes a great church for people. They have to have a kids thing. We're at HermNaz. We're praying for and looking for a children's pastor. Is it going to make us a great church? Well, for some people, it's going to make us a great church. It's going to make us a stronger church, a healthy church. Student ministry, your position, I mean, does it make us a great church? Well, if for some it does, but it makes us a healthy church. So there's a difference, I think, between a great church and a healthy church, because there's a lot of great churches who are compassionate in their community, who will do what we did at Fall Fest this week, who will go feed the poor, serve at the soup kitchen, serve at the warming center. That's a great church because they do that. But is the church healthy? And so that's what I want to hear from you. What makes a great church to you?
And what makes a healthy church? Because I think there is that differentiation. And I know for us as a staff, and as leadership, when we talk to our board and whatnot, we desire to be a great church for sure, but that's not our primary focus. Our primary focus is to be healthy all the time, whether it's financially, whether it's theologically, whether it's programmatically. We want to be healthy first, because if you're healthy first, then you can become a great church.
So here's the definition of great as far as like from my perspective. A church is great if they love God, love others, and then they disciple. You grow in your faith. That's a great church. If you're doing those three things, loving God, loving others, and then doing the discipleship thing, that's huge. Everything else will fall in underneath that.
Well, isn't that the words of Jesus?
I wasn't going to say that.
I mean, he literally said the two greatest commandments: love God with all your heart, your soul, your mind.
That's
your strength.
true. See, look, I
and then love others as yourself.
But that's it.
Well, and as a student ministry, our literal mission statement right now is to love God, love others, and love ourselves. And I've had people ask me, what's with the love ourselves? I don't get that. Well, Jesus says to love others as we love ourselves. We have to love ourselves the way that Jesus loves us. We have to see through the imperfections that we, in our humanness, will see. So that is not just a big church thing. That is something that even in our individual ministries within our church, we focus on, is loving God, loving others, loving ourselves, doing ministry, discipling. Like, those are things that matter to everybody in all of our ministry areas. So let's pare this down. Many times when we have discussions like this, we tend to talk a lot in the end about what is HermNaz doing? Like, what can, if there's pastors watching or other church leaders from other churches watching this, not that we want to pat ourselves on the back, but what can they learn from what we do here at HermNaz? What are things that we do to make sure that we are healthy and that we are as great as we can be for God's kingdom?
Okay, so yeah, that's good. But we still want to hear from you on what makes now a healthy church. I mean, shoot us those things, because we want to learn as well, right, from our people. But I think one thing that we've learned, or that I've learned anyway as a pastor, is that a healthy church cannot do everything. A healthy church cannot do everything to love everybody. A healthy church cannot do everything to love every congregant, every neighborhood. We can't. So a healthy church knows its boundaries.
That's just not right.
I know it's not, but that's what I've learned.
You would not believe how many times we hear, well, you didn't show up at the hospital. Did you tell me you were at the hospital?
Right.
No.
Right.
Well, then how are we supposed to show up? I mean, those sorts of things happen all the time. We
Right.
can't be everything to everybody. I think that's really important.
Right. And I think the other thing that I've learned is that culture is imperfect. And the church is made up of culture, and people who live in the same culture, we're imperfect. And I know that's scriptural too. I know this. But I think we have to understand that and realize it. So to be a healthy church, you got to know, like, we have imperfections. We're not perfect.
It used to be, so as we are today, probably for worse, not for better, the church is downstream of culture in many, many ways. And when I say the church, I mean big C, the church as a whole. Some individual churches may not fall into this category, but many churches are downstream from culture, meaning what's happening in culture flows down into the church. It wasn't all that long ago when that was flipped and the culture was downstream of the church, that what was happening in the church, what was being discussed in the church, the way that the church was living life and doing life would flow into culture. We need to get back to that. I mean, that's something that if you're a great church in your local community, that the culture of your community is downstream from your church culture. That's something that for me, I think is a big deal. Like we talk about it in our student ministry. We want to be something that is set apart, that when students come in, it is counter to the culture, that it is influencing culture, not culture influencing us. And I think that's something that a great church influences culture. It's not influenced by the culture.
Right. And sometimes that doesn't work, but that's the signs of a healthy church. I think another sign of a healthy church is the people laugh together. There's relationship there. They laugh. And they can laugh about whatever. But usually what I've learned is that when they're laughing because they have things in common, and they just laugh. And I love that. Now we only have really like one room for our church here locally. I mean, so you hear the crying and the laughing all in one room, and sometimes that's really distracting for one or the other. But yeah, I think that's a sign of a healthy church.
Well, we're talking about it in our student ministry starting next week. We have a whole new series we're beginning called Friendsgiving, and kind of leading up to Thanksgiving. But we're going to talk about community, and one of the things that I'm going to point out to our students, and one of the things you pointed out before, is that a healthy church is a family. And one of the things about family is that you both laugh and you cry together. You have joyful things and painful things you go through together. Sometimes you build each other up, and unfortunately, sometimes you're going to tear each other down. And sometimes you need to forgive each other, all of those things. And that's just part of being a family. And I think, we talked about the expectations at the beginning. I think people expect that when they come to a church that they're going to be a part of that there's going to be a family atmosphere, that it is going to be like a family. And I wouldn't say HermNaz is perfect in this, but I think we certainly are trying to foster as a staff and as a leadership that culture inside of our church.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think a healthy church also, as we move through this, I think another thing about a healthy church is that we're continually trying to learn. And when we learn, we grow. And that's why we're here today saying, hey, help us learn. Send us the note. What's a great church in your mind, and what's a healthy church in your mind? And you can leave out the commentary on if HermNaz is good or bad at that. Just tell us your opinion without the commentary. That is much appreciated. So we can read between the lines pretty good. So
you can always send us a personal email.
Yeah, he send it all to him. But
send it to the church office. Office at hermnaz.church.
I think the other thing that a healthy church does is it develops leaders. It develops leaders. That's a healthy church. And I didn't say it develops volunteers, right? Because volunteers only come when people get the heart of God and chase Jesus and look for a place to serve. But like we have two students that just went to this convention to learn about the call on their life, and that's developing leader. That's a healthy part of the church.
Yeah, one of them is even called to be a hospital chaplain. Like, how does that
right,
happen?
Yeah, that's what she said.
It's crazy.
Yeah, she told me she doesn't even know what a chaplain is.
She's like, I feel like I'm supposed to counsel people when they go through crisis situations, and the hospital seems like a place where I can do that and minister. And I'm like, that's great. Wonderful.
So another big healthy thing I think the church is we are got to stay focused on Jesus and on people. Because that's why Jesus came, right? He came, so we focus on him. His focus was all on people. It wasn't on everything else in life. So I think that's healthy, and I think we try to do that. As far as leadership goes, we try to keep our focus on Jesus and on people. And you hear me say all the time, because I might miss a meeting or I come in late, I really try hard not to do that, but it's always people first. If someone's needing it, it's people first. We can always meet later and stuff, but I think that's a sign of a healthy church. And I think that goes through our church people too. They catch that.
I think one of the other things that healthy churches sets a healthy church apart from churches that aren't so healthy is flexibility. One of the things I've really valued about our church, as we went through your health concerns when I first got here, all the way leading up into pandemic and through pandemic now, we have seen a church that is flexible, a church that is willing to allow us to have growing pains and learning pains. Because, there are a lot of things that we had to learn over these last 3 years that we would have never expected that we'd have to learn. To be flexible in your sabbatical, and not only be flexible in that, but to support that and to encourage that, and to understand that there were going to be some moments that maybe things didn't go exactly how we had anticipated through, week to week or whatever. So I've really appreciated that. And I think that's a very good value for a church to have, is flexibility and being willing to, I guess more than that, trust leadership and to rely on the leadership to navigate some of the weirdness that time
The
and culture
weirdness.
brings us.
Yeah. Well, that trust, starts at the leadership level, and I think a healthy church trusts their staff, trusts their leaders. And I think we both probably can look at church examples of churches that don't trust their leaders, and when that doesn't happen, when that integrity and that leadership is gone, where do you go with that? Sometimes a leader will lose integrity or trust, that they have no control over. So that's not really what we're talking about. But when you trust your leader, then the doors are pretty wide open. So in a healthy church, the staff trusts the staff, and that's, I think, that just stems with the health right at the core. So. I also think that the healthy church, it resists this, in leadership, we talk about silos and in the framework of teamwork, is a church has to resist the silo type of ministry, which means one person doesn't do everything, but it's a team effort. And even in Fall Fest, it's amazing. We had, I don't know how many volunteers, I haven't talked to Gabriel yet, but we probably had 50-ish or 60
Probably so.
volunteers to pull off last night. Now 60 volunteers to have an event for 1,000 people. That's what we planned for. That's not a whole lot.
We could have used more.
We could have used a whole lot more in that. But but we're not a silo. We don't want to do ministries where it's just silo people. So
yeah, and one of the things that silo ministry tends to bring to a church, and pastors and people who have been in church leadership for a while will know exactly what that means. But basically, it's like saying kids ministry goes over here, student ministry goes over here, senior adult ministry over here, and they never intertwine other than maybe a Sunday morning. That's the only time they're together. And the leaders, like a children's ministry leader, is not going to be involved in what's going on with student ministry and vice versa. But one of the things that tends to happen, especially in a smaller church setting like ours, is that if you have silo church happening, burnout for your volunteers is going to happen very, very quickly. Even in our church where we don't have siloed ministry, burnout is still something that we have to deal with our people, because like many churches, you have a small group of people that are your core leaders who are invested and who are going to do the lion's share of the work because that's their heart's there. But those people get burnt out really, really fast. And so a church that spreads that leadership and that volunteerism, that serving around, and the more hands that are apart, hands and feet, as Paul puts it, the more hands and feet that are moving to make events like our Fall Fest or Diaper Dash or any of these sorts of things that we do happen, you will be a healthier church, a more successful church, because you're not burning your people out.
So I don't know. I guess I don't know if we're wrapping this up or not, or what our time is, but
about 6-7 minutes to go.
Okay, so I guess today's one of those podcasts where it's more just our hearts on leadership, and most people probably are maybe listening, going like, well, I don't need to really know any of that. Yes, you do, because you need to be jumped into a ministry at your local church, whether it's here or wherever it is that you attend. And you won't jump into something unless you know it's a great church and it's a healthy church. You're not going to jump into something that's not healthy and something that's just dumb. You're not going to do it. So that's probably why you're not involved in a ministry, because you don't really know what's going on. So jump in, get involved. That's the only way you can strengthen the church. Strengthen the programming, strengthen your staff, strengthen your community. And I don't mean just church community, but like the community that's around your church or wherever your church like ministers. You got to jump in, because here at our church, if we don't have people jumping in, we don't do it, and so therefore we have holes. And I still think we do more than we should do, because we don't have as many volunteers as we need that are catching on to go like, oh yeah, I could be a good churchman because we got a great church and we've got a healthy church. How can you make it healthier? So like even at Fall Fest for us, we had a gentleman come and serve this year that has only served one other time at Fall Fest, and he's did it first year here, and then it was like, nah, I'm busy. Well, he was here last night and helping out. Great, great to have him here. But he was like, this was good. Another guy last year, man, ripped us over the coals over Halloween in the church and how's the church celebrate Halloween and all this. Well, this year he comes and he took on and led one of our ministries that at Fall Fest, and he had to get over the ghost and goblin, and that's not what we believe in and go. But
and I think he caught the vision.
He caught the vision that this is a healthy thing. I trust my leaders, and I'm gonna jump in. And I saw him serving candy. I saw him serving adult volunteers. I saw him serving in the area that he was supposed to serve in. And it's just a great thing for me to watch. Going like, here's somebody who loves Jesus. He seeks after the Lord. He's a great guy of faith. But he took time to research to make sure this was a great thing and to make sure it's an authentic thing. And he jumped in to make it even stronger. So he made us better last night.
Yeah, and I would just end with this. I think the one last piece that we haven't really discussed at length yet, as far as what makes a healthy church, is a church that you kind of touched on it with saying that a church develops leaders, not volunteers. If you go to a church or you come to HermNaz or whatever, and you look around and say, man, that children's ministry just isn't good, or man, there's nothing for senior adults, or man, the student ministry needs work, or whatever. Pick the ministry, worship, whatever. Maybe you're the person that's supposed to step into that hole. Maybe instead of complaining and saying, man, look what they're lacking, maybe God has a place for you to step in and be a part of the solution, even if only temporarily.
So let me back up on you on that, though, because I think a lot of people have that mindset, but they'll never complain about it.
Sure.
Right? It's like we keep it to ourselves.
It's just all internal.
It's here. It's like, well, they just what. So then they don't ever do anything about it. They don't complain. They don't tell us. They don't whine about it to anybody else. But yet,
it's still there, festering.
They're still missed.
Right? Well, and that's, I guess that's my point. Like, no matter whether you're speaking it verbally or keeping it internal, the point is, if you look around your church or you're visiting a new church and you want to plug in. Plug in does not mean you go sit in a pew or in a chair every Sunday morning and then go home and that's the end of it. Like, if that's all your experiences with the church, you're missing so much. The church is the greatest organization that's ever been created, and there are so many ways for God to use you and to plug you in and to have you be a part of building his kingdom. And so instead of festering or getting frustrated because of the areas that things aren't happening, if you're not plugged in, plug in. And if you are frustrated just because you're doing too much, it's okay to say no. Can we tell you as leaders, it's okay to say no? Because we as leaders, at least at HermNaz, we're okay with holes. We just are.
Yeah.
It stinks. Sometimes we're like, oh. But we'd rather have a hole than try to do something and not do it well because we don't have the people to make it happen.
So everything you just said sounds great. It really sounds great. But that person that comes and goes, Pastor, I got a great idea. We need to do this and this and this. And it's like, great, how are you going to help us do it? And they're like, well, I don't think I want to do any of that. So everything you just said, that's the bullet that always blows the hole in the whole thing. So then we're right back to ground zero, right? So
yeah, I'm not saying you should necessarily always be starting your own thing, doing your own thing, but again, jump in, be a part of the church family. There are places to serve. I know if you're a HermNazer, we have holes everywhere that could be filled. So just talk to one of us, talk to one of the ministry leaders. We want to get you plugged in.
So next week we're going to be back in the studio.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that. So we'll see.
And I will be gone in a couple weeks. So I don't know if you're going to do a show on your own or maybe we'll pre-record one for that. But I'll be going on vacation.
Yes. Going to the lodge.
Oh, man. So we talked about at the end of his sabbatical, him and his wife went to Sisters, Oregon to a bed and breakfast lodge that is for pastors and their spouses to respite and to recoup and to recover from ministry for a little while. And you have to do a whole week, which I just love that. Like, it's not like, hey, I'm going to go there for a night and come home. Like, they want you to stay there a whole week. So
but the thing you don't know about that event is those were just pictures online. We really stayed in a tent.
Oh, okay. I know that's not true. So
Definitely not.
no, but my wife and I are really excited about that, and we got fall retreat coming up for our student ministry here in a few weeks, a week and a half. So God's going to do some amazing things there. So if you want a way to pray for us, pray for our student ministry, I would just ask for prayer for that. We're really excited about what God's going to do.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for watching, and check us out next week as we get back to the studio.
Yep.